Thank you so much, Dr. Snow. Thank you to everyone for being in here. I love this kind of an activity because I feel like we are cheating the rest of the world. It's just our time together. And so if you don't mind, one of the things I've been learning this year, I've been learning from one of my professional crushes, Brene Brown. She's a researcher out of the University of Houston. She's taught me how to breathe. Now I'm 39 years old. You'd think I would have figured this out before, but I have not. And so if you don't mind, because we're together and the doors are closed and this is going to be our good time together, we're going to do a little box breathing exercise, if that's okay with you. Really, it's for me, but you're going to join me and then we're all going to have more oxygen and this is all going to feel great. So you are going to take your little pointer fingers, right? Take your pointer fingers and we're going to make a box. We're going to breathe in for 3, hold for 3, breathe out for 3, and hold for 3. So we're making this box breathing method. Ready? Okay. So I'll start it, but then I'm going to be breathing so I can't count, so we're all just going to have to kind of get there on our own. Okay, ready, go. One more time. Good. Feels good. Feels good to be centered. I am so happy to be here. I am really honored to be invited by the Institute for the Study of Human Flourishing to present a last lecture. This is harder than it looks. It's harder than it sounds. I've been telling people today that from now on, and I would like this documented, please, formally for my records, I would only like 20 minutes notice on a speech, not a year's notice, okay? It's too much time to contemplate what you think about something as serious as this, but I really am honored to be here. Truth be told, if this was actually my last lecture, and there was some confusion with the President's Leadership class, I'm told that some people saw this poster, they were frustrated with me, I hadn't said anything to them about leaving the university. We were able to clear that up randomly at an Old Navy in Oklahoma City. I think I was able to take care of that, but ultimately, if this was my last lecture, it would look a lot like Ellen, the show. I don't know how many of you watch Ellen. But I would do things like give out huge checks. They would bounce, but they would be huge checks. And I would give out cars, and then some hardworking gal in the back just trying to put her way through grad school, I'd pay all her debt. And then we'd have a DJ. It might be Stephen Lee, because he's pretty talented. And we would just dance for the rest of the time. Unfortunately, they have higher expectations for me today. So I'm going to actually have some things that I share with you. And mostly, I'd like to start by saying thank you. Because one of the things that I have learned in my time on this planet is that the very most expensive thing you all have to offer is your time. And so the fact that you, in the middle of your day, and I know this, you have to walk here, right? Some people have Fitbits now, the new Fitbits. Thank you, OU Wellness. They're taking advantage of those steps. But you came here today, you made a plan to be with us, and you're investing your time. So I just really want to start from a humble place of gratitude. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us for the next hour. I really, really appreciate you. And I also appreciate the looks in your faces right now because it's nice to give a speech in a room full of your friends. Everyone wants you to do well. It's awkward if I don't, so I know you really want me to do well. Your time is expensive. In fact, I like to think about it as priceless. And when I work with freshmen especially, I try to tell them that this is an accelerating experience. It's going to start at one speed. It's going to get faster and faster and faster. And so you really have to pay attention. Otherwise, you miss something. I think that we live and work in such a special place at the University of Oklahoma that we have this kind of network of friendship that bridges years and generations and backgrounds and opinions. We're really in a special place. And so I feel really lucky about that, too. We are poor in resources. Wah, wah. Sorry, state shortfall, but we are rich in friendship. And so I'm hoping that today some of my comments can help encourage you and make you feel the way I do about OU, which is that we are very blessed to be together today. For the past 8 months, I've been thinking about this. I've been chewing on it. I've been reading books about it. I've been waking my husband up with the light from my cell phone because I'll think of something. I'm like, if I don't type this right now, it's gone. Poof, like it never actually happened. And so I've been thinking about this for a long time. And the more I thought about giving a last lecture about this concept of you may not have another chance to share the things that you want to share with people, the more jumbled my thoughts became. And so I finally turned to my brilliant life coaching husband, Casey. He was born to be a life coach. He's really good at asking questions. And so I really kind of wanted him to tell me an answer instead of ask me a question, but he's a coach. So I said, Casey, what should I do? And he said, well, what do you want people to think about your life? What are you good at? And I said, well, I'm good at British accents. And Once again, not a lot of material there to kind of go for. But then he really helped me. He said, you're really good at celebrating. You're really good at celebrating life and people. And I said, well, I have a lot of people who have taught me how to do that. He said, well, that's fine. You can still be an expert in it. You can still know about it, even if you learned it from other people. I'm like, touche. Thank you, Mr. Partridge. And so at this point, the framework fell together for me. And it's really this guy, this other man in my life. He's just a handsome fella, isn't he? Ralph Waldo Emerson. Truthfully, I should just start a slideshow of his quotes and just be quiet. And the rest of the speech would just fall into place. Ralph Waldo Emerson gets me. I understand his soul. I mean, come on, he says the earth laughs in flowers. Of course it does. And it's laughing at us right now. Surprise, flowers, it's gonna snow later, right? But it really does. The earth does laugh in flowers. Every quote he says, just I feel it. And I came upon this quote, my quote that I chose the title of this presentation for, in a time in my life, I think I was probably maybe 15, when I felt unlovely and lonely and let down by my own story. And I think a lot of people in the audience can probably associate with that. It's a feeling a lot of us feel sometimes. Our story is letting us down. We had this dream, right? It was gonna be amazing. You're gonna meet your best friends in college. It's gonna be the best time of your life. You're gonna find the partner of your dreams, right? And then life kind of zigs instead of zags. And I was feeling that way early on. This quote came to me, and it was basically the same effect as a football coach like slapping me on the pads. Like, wake up, right? And here's the full quote. I'll share it with you. There is no beautifier of complexion or behavior or form like the wish to scatter joy and not pain around us. There is no beautifier of complexion or behavior or form like the wish to scatter joy and not pain around us. I felt this. I didn't just hear it, I felt it. And all of a sudden, the need to be beautiful or popular or even capable fell away. Because all of a sudden I understood that if you're really trying to live your purpose in life, your purpose is to find your joy and then to share that joy with others. So I fell in love with the quote, and I have it in my office, and I think about it a lot. And ultimately, I feel that the world is kind of brutal to us. In fact, some of my reading, I try to read a lot. I love to read. At one point, before I had children, I was trying to read 50 books a year. That's what I would aim to read. Now I'd probably hit more like 30. But I love to read, and part of that reading experience is this aha experience. You know, Dr. Snow mentioned that's my favorite thing to be a part of. I've never taught anyone to read. My sister Carrie's here. She was a teacher in elementary school. She's taught people to read. I never have, but I feel like I've been there for the same kind of moment, right? This aha moment, when you kind of discover something that's liberating about yourself, that you get it, that you understand, and that's how I felt. I decided that this would be the framework of my presentation because it's really all I know how to do. I use this as a practice. My friend Rhonda Kensel talks a lot about her spiritual practice. And it's not just that you get up and feel joyful every day. So let's be frank. Scatter joy doesn't mean there's rainbows and butterflies and we're skipping along, just living the dream, right? It doesn't mean that. That's not life. What scatter joy means to me is making a conscious decision to scatter joy. No matter how I feel, no matter what's going on, it's choosing to live in a very particular way. I knew that it could be a practice. I knew that ultimately what this would teach me to do is to make moments into memories. And that's what I would really encourage you all to think about doing as we talk about this. What are the moments that you experience in your life that with a little tweak, with a little bit of a plan, you could turn those into memory moments? I'm going to share with you about some people that are really good at that. But I also want you to know that in this room, I'm looking across, it's like a slideshow of my life, and there are some really good joy scatterers in here. One of them is sitting right here in the front. Her name's Jill. We used to have a service auction in student life to raise money for United Way. And one year, Jill decided she would put a singing telegram in the auction. Jill is a fantastic singer. She is trained. She was an Oklahoma kid. She put on a red leotard and an Uncle Sam hat. And we proceeded to walk to the math department and sing a patriotic medley in the middle of the math department meeting. One of the best moments of my life. I was supposed to be videoing it, by the way. I messed it up. So the memory is only in here for all of us. The memory is only in here. I just know so many people in here that are really, really good at this. Jess Mudhar here in the front row actually considered taking off a couple of days around Valentine's Day and volunteering his services at a flower shop because he loves to work with flowers. And he thought, wouldn't that be fun on Valentine's Day? And I said, I don't actually think that would be very fun on Valentine's Day, but you should do it and let us know what you find out, right? just knows how to turn moments into memories. At the University of Oklahoma, I believe it's our common mission to shed light on what is good, on what is authentic. And that is in theory, research, and practice. That is our common mission. We're here to help students write their way into the larger world so that they become citizens and scholars. And for me, scattering joy can be compared, as cliche as it may sound, to the seed sower statue that is all over this campus. He is sowing the seeds of knowledge, and I believe that if we are really intentional about it, we can sow the seeds of happiness for people, of joy for people, of encouragement for people. This idea that they can be this best version of themselves because we're behind them 100%. I think it's our responsibility. The Institute promotes 9 virtues, and I chose 3 to kind of act as a framework for this presentation. The first is self-regulation, the second is open-mindedness, and the third is compassion. Self-regulation would be defined as regulating your thoughts and your actions for the betterment of yourself and the world. It's an executive virtue, and it's one of those virtues that makes every other virtue possible, because if you can't act in this way, it's very difficult for you to find and capture the other virtues in your own practice. This makes living a better story possible. Now, when it comes to self-regulation, I think about a few things. I think first about using your small hours. And students, you have a lot of small hours. It may not feel like it. In fact, most of the students who come to my door, and I'm sure a lot of the students that come to the staff and faculty's door here will tell you what? I am so busy. I am so busy. I'm like, well, what are you doing? They're like, well, I nap. And I have classes and stuff, and then they have homework. And they're right, they are busy, especially for this adjustment in their life when they used to go from a bell to a bell, right? And then all tear out of the parking lot at the same time. That is a lot. It is a lot on their plate. But I want to make sure that we're very clear about what the small hours are, and that using the small hours is actually a strategy to kind of regulating your decision-making process. My husband's favorite band is Rob Thomas. We made a deal that we each got to pick a band, and if that band performed in the continental United States, we would go to the tour. So Rob Thomas is Casey's. We've seen him several times. He came to the Windstar. It was fantastic. But his song actually inspired this for me, of using your small hours. He has a song about it, these little wonders, these twists and turns of fate, right? Beautiful poetry. I love Rob. That is what I'm talking about, is how are you utilizing your small hours to really benefit humanity? How are you using your small hours to accumulate memories instead of just moments in your life? Using the small hours. The second thing that I really think goes under self-regulation is this idea of choosing your thoughts and your words wisely. One of the books that I have really found a lot of insight in is a book called How Full Is Your Bucket? By a man named Tom Rath. And this is a book that really focuses, if you haven't read it, on positive psychology. If you haven't read it, it is an easy read. I think it's like 30-point font or something. I think they're trying to stretch something out a little bit. And there's a couple pages that just have a picture of a bucket on them. So you can do this. You could probably read this in an hour and a half, all right? But How Full Is Your Bucket really shares mountains of research about how much our positive psychology and our interactions matter. The research project that was featured in this book that really turned my mind. And I've always been positive. It's one of my top 5 strengths, positivity. But I think what really changed the game for me was this study. In 1992, they videotaped 700 couples who had just received their marriage licenses. So it were early marriage. And they videotaped a 15-minute conversation between that couple, okay? Then when the couples left, the researchers analyzed the ratio of positive to negative interactions, and then they tried to predict how many of those couples would be married in 10 years. So a 15-minute conversation, evaluate the interactions, positive versus negative, and predict whether they would stay married. Anybody have any guesses about how accurate they were? Anybody? People are like, a lot. It was a lot. 94% actually. 94% accuracy from a 15-minute taped conversation. At that point, I realized that this strength of mine was actually a superpower, and I was really going to need to learn to harness it, because I want to stay married, man. I like this guy, and I want to make sure that I am following what they call the magic ratio, which is 5 positive comments to every negative comment. And so I actually think about this sometimes. You know, with my son, we're raising a 4-year-old. 4-year-olds don't do what you think that they should do a lot of the time. But how am I making sure that my negative responses, that maybe my discipline, the harshness of my tone is balanced out for this tiny little being that is learning how to communicate in the universe. That book really changed a lot for me. It also went on to tell us things that you probably already know in your minds. That if you're positive and happy, you will live longer, you will make more money, you will be more successful in life, more satisfied in your relationships. It's pretty much a win-win-win for everyone. So positive psychology really changed the way I think about self-regulation. And it's a choice that you make every day. It's not necessarily a factor of your circumstances. It's a decision-making process. And finally, I think self-regulation leads to living a better story, which if I had a different title for this presentation, that would probably be it. And that's really my hope for every single student that walks across our campus, is that they learn to live a better story while they're here. Because if not, we're wasting our time, and they're wasting somebody's money. We have to learn how to live a better story. It's critical. And I think that at the end of the day, when you think about self-regulation and you think about your power to live a better story and to do that for yourself, to have a more dramatic narrative arc, then it starts to get interesting. And at that point, you think, oh, wait a minute. Maybe this is something I should be doing. I read a book that actually really hammered this home, and I would highly recommend it. This is an essayist. His name's Donald Miller. He wrote a book called Blue Like Jazz, and my friend Zach Stevens told me about early on in his career. And Blue Like Jazz had huge success. In fact, he talks about that. He said, you know, I wrote a book, and it sold a lot of copies, and I felt really good about myself. And then I wrote a book that didn't sell any copies, and I got all insecure and mushy again, which is, I think, the plight of the writer, right? But this is another home run as far as I'm concerned. If you can kind of read in here, it says, how I learned to live a better story. And this guy is so honest. He's such an honest writer, and he talks a lot about how he was pretty miserable. He said, you know, I'm overweight, I'm not in a relationship, I really want to be in a relationship. He said, you know, I'm writing and I'm doing these things, but essentially then I'm just going home and I'm sitting on the couch. And the book is about his journey into understanding how you live this better story. And there's a story in the book that really impacted me, and it was about a mentor of his who was losing contact with his teenage daughter, as happens. You know, teenagers, I'm sure a lot of our students in the room may still be teenagers. You start to grow up and you have your own opinions, and your space and time is spent differently than your parents. And so he was feeling this disconnection from his daughter, and she was upstairs trying on her prom dress with her mom. And he kind of knew this was happening, and he made a decision. And the decision was, he went to his room, he put on a suit, and he went and knocked on her door. And she opened the door, and then she's like, what's going on? He said, I just wanted to have my picture taken with you because you look so beautiful. And she's kind of stunned, and the mother's kind of stunned, and they all just look at each other. And then he says, and may I have this dance? And they ended up having this memory until 1 o'clock in the morning on what could have been, hey, mom-daughter quality time, don't I look great in this dress? It became a family experience. That story changed the pattern of my own behavior. I'm going to give you some examples of how that has gone. First, when Don Miller talks, he uses very powerful language, and so I had to include this quote because I want you to see this phrase because I think it's just devastatingly beautiful. And once you live a good story, you get a taste for a kind of meaning in life, and you can't go back to being normal. You can't go back to meaningless scenes stitched together by the forgettable thread of wasted time. What? Dawn. The forgettable thread of wasted time. That is beautiful. Now, I want to be clear. I believe there is a place in our life for network binging The Crown, okay? I believe that there is a space for you to hammock in front of the library. There's enough place for that. That's not the small hours I'm talking about. I'm talking about the part of you that says no to challenge and awesomeness and adventure. The part that says, no, it's safer in here. Instead, I'm going to lay in the dark, I'm going to eat Cheetos, and I will catch you on the flip side, right? That's what I'm talking about, the forgettable thread of wasted time. It's so beautiful. And so I started trying to make it my mission to turn some moments into memories the way this man turned this moment with his daughter into a memory, and I want to share some of them with you. We had an amazing coinciding of two super random holidays, okay? The first is National Corduroy Day. I don't know if you knew that there was a National Corduroy Day, but there is. And it happened to fall this particular year on 11/11/11 and so we decided, well, obviously, we're going to take a photo together dressed in corduroy at 11/11/11 a.m. This is a hilarious moment for us. It took about 10 minutes and absolutely zero planning. Essentially, it was like, guys, wear your corduroy tomorrow. It's National Corduroy Day. And everybody went, okay. And now we have this picture preserved for all of eternity. And this kid is a student worker in my office. What? right? I have this memory, I'm like, Alex, dude, remember when we spent 11 together? And he's like, what was your name again? But it was so special anyway. I know, Alex, I know. I'm a lot. It's fun. Here's another one. My beautiful sister, my sister Carrie is here. She's also an alum of OU. Our whole family is. That's kind of the requirement to get in. Has these beautiful daughters. In fact, my niece Grace is here. Wave everybody, Grace. Hello. This is Grace. And when Grace was little, there is a phenomenon in Norman called the daddy-daughter dance, which, as far as I can tell, I don't have a daughter, and I'm not a daddy, so I'm not invited. But as far as I can tell, it's a DJ, like an awesome DJ, and then some Cheetos and some Oreos, I think. And then one time the power went out, so the dance was canceled. Like, it's not high tech, right? It's just this very sweet opportunity for people to come together, and it is packed. Well, my brother-in-law, Jared, is an amazing dad, and he actually has one more than this. So you see Avery, you see Jovi, you see Grace, and then there's Jane. She's little and toddling somewhere over there. She doesn't get to go to the dance yet. But one of the things I thought was so sweet is that Jared said, hey, I want you to get dressed up, and I'm going to dress up in a suit, and I'm going to come get you. Well, my sister and I were talking about how wouldn't it be a lot more fun if we actually created our own beauty shop for the girls, and we called it our inner beauty shop. And something that you probably don't know about me is that I have an alter ego, and her name is Lurleen. And Lurleen grew up doing my mom and my grandmother's nails. I don't know why I chose this name. It was a name from The Simpsons, and I just really liked it. And so I would always wear a side ponytail, and I would do their nails. And so I made a sheet, and Carrie's like, oh yeah, we're totally in. So Carrie placed an invitation that they had a reservation at Lurleen's Inner Beauty Shop, and they came over to my house, and I met them, and I had pink lemonade. And the one that's smiling the most is Jovi. This was her first year to go. This was only a few weeks ago. This is her first year to go. And when she came in, I heard Avery say to her, Jovi, there will be snacks. So I realized at this point, like, not only is this a memory, but it's like a must. Like, Lurleen's will always be open. Weddings, prom, whatever they will let me come to, Lurleen and her side ponytail will also be there. But again, it doesn't take very long to put something like this together, but it really has made a huge difference for us. We have a great time. And then, y'all, the sweetest moment ever is when Jared comes to the door and he has flowers for them, and these little girls twirl. They feel so beautiful, and it makes me so happy. I just love it for them. It's really one of my favorite things to do. Another one of my partners in crime is sitting in this room. And a long time ago, I almost died dressing up as Winnie the Pooh for her son's birthday party. What they don't tell you when you put a mascot costume on is there's no air in there. And it's about 250 degrees. And I don't know what you know about Winnie the Pooh. If you could stretch your mind to a mascot costume, it's foam and then fur and then a sweater. And this birthday is in the summertime, y'all. And so we're doing the hokey pokey, and I'm like, I'm about to die. And my sister's like, come on, Winnie. And there's a kid like on my leg. And I drag myself to the garage because I really don't want to pass out on anybody at this birthday. That's really the end. So I have no idea, honestly, why we continue to think that this would be a great idea. We really wanted to dress up in some kind of costume and go out on campus during finals week. And so we drive to Oklahoma City to this questionable establishment. I don't know what was going on in there. I will tell you that this was called Blue Monster and Red Monster. And that they smelled like feet. But we picked these costumes up, and we were just cracking up the entire time. Like, the whole time we ride by, we were just laughing. And we put these costumes on, and we go out with our little sign. The back of that sign said free cookies, because obviously it's Blue Monster. And he loves cookies. And we did this until, again, we thought we were going to pass out. But the best part is we never told anybody. This is the first day I've ever told anybody it was us. It was us. And we even got pictures. We took our picture with the provost so we can get some street cred with his kids. Sesame Street cred. We found him on the steps of Evans Hall. He's like, oh, hey, I need this photograph. We're like, really? Well, we didn't say anything. We just said, because you don't say anything when you're in there. You got to conserve all of the oxygen, right? But that was our South Oval experiment. And this is maybe one of my favorite moments in the history of my time at the University of Oklahoma. And it revolves around one of the most amazing people, Qui Win, who's sitting here in the middle. This really sweet student came to me with this brilliant idea. His name is Nick. And Nick said, oh my gosh, you know what Qui would love? And everybody loves Qui. Y'all know that. Y'all love Qui, right? Qui! The student said, you know what would be amazing? Qui wants to go to the Thailand Lantern Festival. we should collect money and send him there. And I said, Nick, there's this rule about what state employees can accept as gifts, and it's like $40. So I don't think we're going to Thailand, but maybe we could tweak your idea. You know, how can we maybe make this work? And so Nick was like, what if we order these lanterns? I'm like, what if we do? And so we ordered 300 lanterns, and we surprised Kui. We drove him to the top of a place I won't name because it's probably against the rules for us to be there. And we drove him to the top, and it is the dead of winter, y'all. It's like frostbite winter. And we drove him to the top, and he thought there were students having an event during Dead Week, which is against the rules. He's like, oh, Kristen's about to go off. She's about to go off. And instead, it was a surprise party for Kui. And we praised him and hugged him, and we lit 300 lanterns. You can kind of see the ones that go up in the sky over there. And we all just stood there and just had this moment together, this celebratory moment. And so for me, this was even a different version of this idea of telling a better story. It was telling a better story to make someone else the center of my story. And the joy that comes from that is exponential, right? It's exponential. Kui's Wish Lantern Festival is still one of the best times of my life. Not over our wedding, though. I loved our wedding. And then Kui. And Sam. And Sam also. So I guess my question to you as we move forward here is, what would you do to celebrate a friend unexpectedly? What could you do? We used to have parties all the time. We had Kate-a-Palooza. We had it was Kate Easter, because she liked Easter. We would just name a party after a friend of ours and show up at their house in college with snacks and be like, today's your party. And they'd be like, what's for? We're like, because you're alive. And we would have these parties. Really easy to pull off. So I would challenge you to maybe think about who you could have a lantern moment with, who you could have a random party in their name. All of those people will still tell me how special they felt at that moment. And it took absolutely zero energy or effort on our part to scatter that joy. The second virtue I want to talk about is open-mindedness. This idea that, or the ability rather, to step outside your point of view and consider alternatives to the way that you believe things, that you understand things, that you process information. Open-mindedness. To be open-minded, in my mind, is to be curious. And I want you to be curious. I want you to ask questions. I want you to be brave. Fear is a liar. And fear will tell you not to ask questions because that other person is too different from you. So I recommend that you really try to make it a habit to ask great questions. I think I made my mother crazy by asking her lots of questions. So crazy. In fact, we were living on Guam at the time. It's a tiny little island. You can drive around in 2 hours. I'm sure she tried to sell me on the island to anyone who needed some question asking. She was so, I think it was stressful enough that I started kindergarten at 4 years old. She was like, go ahead and go. It'll be fine. Enjoy yourself. I need a little time, little mommy time. But I really feel like I've been curious since I was a child, and I wanted to know how things worked and why things worked. And it has really worked to my advantage because, once again, this is a muscle group that we can all exercise to be curious. Start by asking why things are and what makes people tick. One of my people, I've mentioned her, who's really one of the best at being curious about people, is Kate Stanton. Kate knows more about the woman who does her dry cleaning than I know about some people in my family. She asks great questions. She's interested in the contexts and the connection points. She's almost a private investigator, quite honestly, if you ever need any work on the side. She can get you a lot of information from sites I don't know how to access. She might even pay for like memberships and stuff. I don't know. But she's really, really good at paying attention to people, paying attention to the details in their life, being curious about them, and then making them feel like they're the only person in her life at that moment. And it's why whenever there's something to celebrate for Kate, it's like a stampede. It's almost annoying to her because there's like thousands of people who are like, I'd love to do this for you. And she's like, I'm fine. Thank you so much. It's going to be okay. It's just a Tuesday. Everything's good, right? I want you to be curious about people the way my friend Kate is curious about people. The second is Dare Greatly. I already mentioned Brene. We already did a little breathing exercise, so way to go. Brene wrote a book called Dare Greatly that's written after the Roosevelt speech that a lot of times you hear in like hardcore commercials, like during NFL games, like, you know, to dare greatly, to be in the ring with the blood and sweat and tears, right? That speech. It's a fantastic book. And what she talks about, again, her emphasis in her research is shame and vulnerability. She's out of the University of Houston, and she's really revolutionized the way that a lot of people think about these two concepts. In Dare Greatly, what she's basically saying is you have got to embrace your vulnerability in order to embrace your joy. And so this is meaningful to me as a person who loves joy. Then I can't feel the high highs if I'm not willing to feel the low lows. And that's risky. It hurts, you know, it's uncomfortable sometimes, but ultimately it's that courage to be vulnerable that allows us to really fully experience life. So I appreciate her advice for us to dare greatly. And I've actually thought about this a lot. When I was invited to do this speech, I decided that this was a dare greatly kind of moment, because it's the opposite of my personality to think about something for so long. I'm a quick thinker, right? Oh yeah, sure, great, tomorrow. And this is so much more. So I really use that as kind of my courage motivator for giving this presentation today. And then finally, why not? Asking why not. I read a quote once that said that asking why not will make for a more interesting life than asking why. Disclaimer. This is not your permission to use heroin or get a tattoo on your face, all right? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the forever consequences. I'm talking about when someone comes up to you and says, hey, I have this opportunity, you should do this. That's what I'm talking about. I want to share really quickly the greatest story in my entire arsenal of stories. And I love stories. One of the greatest moments in my life, actually. And it's a why not moment. So I thought I would share it with you. You cool with that? I don't even have a slide for it. So in high school, I had great teachers who really looked out for me. I was from a single parent home. My teachers knew that if I was coming to college, I was paying for it myself or I was getting a lot of help. And so one night I was at my house and my drama teacher, her name is Linda Brown, called, and Linda said, hey, listen, we called her B. You need to write a speech. I'm like, what? It was like 9:30. Why are you calling me on my phone? Because it was a cord phone. It wasn't a cell phone. It was a real phone. I was like in the kitchen, you know. I said, what's going on? She said, there is this contest. It's called the Voices of Democracy. No one ever enters this contest from what? You will win. And it's some scholarship money. You should totally do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, listen, you write a speech, you record it. I'm like, what, into my Fisher-Price tape recorder? Like, she's like, we have one in the drama office. I'm like, okay. She said, write this speech and record this speech. We're going to turn it and let's just see what happens. I'm like, why not, right? So I take about an hour of my time. I write a fairly average speech. I don't want to discourage you about Oklahoma, but I'm certain that the other entries were average as well, because I won for the state of Oklahoma. And I go to this like hotel on Meridian by the airport, and there's like a smoky haze, you know. And this woman sings the national anthem. I don't know what key. I don't know what's happening. And I'm standing there going, I cannot believe that I'm standing here. Well, part of winning this is you get this 10-day trip to Washington, D.C. with the winner from each state, because you're now competing on the national level. So I go and meet some of the funniest people I have ever met in my life. Dave Ackerman from New Jersey, who is exactly like you would think he would be. My roommate, Jackie, was from Arizona, and I just really fell in love with Jackie. We just had a great time together. We just had this awesome trip. We met President Clinton. We had our picture taken. We walked around in these terrible jackets, which I've made great use of at the airport afterwards. We looked like we were on the Olympic team from 1985. And we went around and we had this great time. I think I got like 15th or something. I don't know. But I got some scholarship money out of that, right? And then at the end, they said, hey, guess what? We have another prize for you. I'm like, what? And we're all BFFs now. And they said, we're going to take you to this other place called the American Academy of Achievement. It's another trip, and it's in Colonial Williamsburg in May. And we're like, why? And they're like, 'cause you won. We're like, okay. I mean, I had like FedExed plane tickets. I felt pretty big time, right? So we get this second trip. And the American Academy of Achievement is very strange. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, because I haven't. It sounds very generic. It's a bunch of famous people and then some very peculiar high school competitors and weird random things. And they just hang out for a few days. There's a series of symposia where we have panels, and so there's an artist panel, and like Michael Bolton and Robin Williams are up there, and they're talking about their life, right? And then there's a politicians panel. So I look up at one point, and I'm sitting 2 people down from George Bush Sr., and on the other side of him is former President Jimmy Carter. I'm just sitting there. And by the way, I brought the wrong outfits for this. Terrible choices. But anyway. You get kind of this weird feeling. It's like all of a sudden you don't really know where you are, and being with these famous people kind of disorients you. And then you're either over it or you're like a fangirl. And I was over it because I didn't know what to say. I said to George Lucas, where'd you get a name like Chewbacca? And he literally turned around and just walked away from me. Didn't have much to say. But the best part came one day at lunchtime. So they have these panels of people, and they are... they're like, this guy is talking about how he invented the hydrogen bomb, and we're having meatloaf, and it is so surreal. And I'm with Jackie because I had to take a partner into this nutty experience, right? And I'm with Jackie, and this very beautiful, demure, tiny elderly woman sits down. She has 2 assistants, and I recognize her, but I don't. You know, at this point, I'm like, she's probably famous, probably president someplace. I don't know. And I hear her assistant say, "Mrs. Parks, can I get you anything?" And I look at Jackie. I stop eating. Jackie's like, rah, 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 rah. And I go, Jackie, we're having meatloaf with Rosa Parks. And she said, are you kidding me? And she cried. She was a crier. So she just burst into tears. I go, Jackie, listen, we're going to introduce ourselves. We're going to be totally cool about this. And then we're going to go buy her book, okay, right out the hall. So we do. And she was amazing and so charming and so gracious to us. And we got to meet her. And we thought we were on top of the world. Well, that night, the Virginia Philharmonic is playing. If you've ever been to Colonial Williamsburg, it's a very strange experience. But you're out on the lawn, and the Virginia Philharmonic is playing, and they have smoke. And there are soldiers in like period war costumes walking out of the smoke. And they're all playing these patriotic hymns and everything. And I'm sitting on the edge, kind of like you, kind of toward the front. And I recognize a woman who's been in charge. And you know that from like the headset and like the posture, right? And she's standing like in my space, kind of in the aisle. And this is weird because there's about 2,000 people there. She's just standing by me. And at one point she finally, and I keep looking up like, what do you mean? And at one point she finally leans down with her clipboard and she goes, I have a favor to ask for you. Rosa Parks is here. And she needs to sit a little closer to the front so she can hear. And I said, stop. You want me to give up my seat for Rosa Parks? Yes! The answer is yes. And I nudge my friends who have no idea what's going on. They're like, what? I'm like, get your stuff. They're like, but it just started. I'm like, get your stuff. And we go to the back, and they get to meet her, and I had already a chance, and I was like, I didn't even have any words. The irony has never been lost on me. This is all for a why not. An hour of my life on why not. People, use your why nots. I have some other great why nots. Asking why not has led me to these adventures, like meeting my husband. He winked at me in the beer lounge. I was like, I kind of like him. And then about a week later, he goes, do you want to go on a date? And up until this point, when people ask me that, I'd kind of get sick and be like, no. And I was like, why not? And we went on our first date a week later, and then 4 years and 1 tour of Afghanistan later, we got married. So that worked out. That why not worked out. In fact, that is my very favorite why not of my whole life until this one. This is Sam. We had always wanted to adopt a child. I always knew I was going to adopt. So I think I watched Annie too many times, and I was really intense about my Cabbage Patch Kids and their birth certificates. I had my mom like put them in a locked box, you know, for like, they had weird names like Gretchen Egan and stuff, like whatever. I loved them, and they were highly coveted. You had to stand in line for these things, so I loved it. But anyway, I think I watched that, so I knew as a young child that I was going to adopt, and we talked about when we were dating, it was fine. But I'm a slow starter, y'all. Like, I'm having fun, I'm enjoying life. I'm never in a hurry to do anything or get anywhere. And so one night, Casey is asleep, he has a dream. He comes out to me, I'm watching Arrested Development reruns or something, you know, small. And he comes out and he says, Kristen, we need to start our process of adoption, and we need to start it tomorrow. And I said, why not? Literally, that was my response. Why not? Sounds great. Can't wait. And then about a year later, we met this little guy. When we got him, he was 20 months old. He is meant to be ours. He actually looks like my husband. He's super ornery and super affectionate, and I love every minute of being a mom. And so far, that's my best why not. It's such a great why not that we know that Sam would be a great big brother. And so this is the year that we're actually going to put in to adopt another child through DHS, because there are a lot of children in Oklahoma that need someone to say why not. All right, my third virtue is compassion. I want you to nurture real friendship in your life. And I don't mean Facebook friendship. And I don't mean Twitter friendship. And I don't mean Snapchat friendship. Those can all be friendships. I mean the kind where you know stuff about people that makes them feel vulnerable, right? The kind of friendship that people want with you. In fact, I did an interview the other day, and one of the things the question was, what do you want to do before you leave OU? And the answer was, I want to make one lifelong friend. And literally my heart broke in my chest, because that is the goal of being here. Why else would you pay for this experience if you weren't really coming up and meeting and really walking in community with some of your lifelong friends? I want you to nurture real friendship. I have a lot of my lifelong friends in this room. One of my favorite people in the world is Allison Stanford. Where is she? She's here. Allison is the kind of friend who makes me feel like $1 million every time I'm with her. She's not a competitor, she is a collaborator. She's one of the greatest people. She actually helped me out with a project like this today. It was like she psychically knew that I was in the weeds. And she emailed me at like 11:45, it's like, what can I do for you? I'm like, oh my God, how did you know? Like, she can kind of read my mind. That's the kind of authentic, lifelong friendship I want you to have. I feel a little emotional when I look out at the crowd, because I have a lot of lifelong friends in this room. And it's pretty amazing to get to spend my work life and my personal life with you all. It's pretty amazing. You have to be vulnerable, people. if you want them to love you. They have to feel safe, and vulnerability makes people feel safe. I want you to speak your love language. I'm sure a lot of you have read this or heard of this book. It's an older book by Gary Chapman. It's called The 5 Love Languages. I usually give it to people who are like dating, or maybe they have some friendships, some roommate issues. I'm like, well, maybe you're not speaking the same love language. It's a pretty straightforward concept that we all speak one of 5 languages. It's quality time, acts of service, gift giving, physical touch, and words of encouragement, words of affirmation. Okay, so of all of those, my love language is gift giving. And this is manifested in a lot of ways. In fact, I knew as a child that this was my love language because I spent $2 and about 9 hours in our church like bazaar where you could buy something for your mom. And I came out of there with a green ashtray. My mom did not smoke. and I gave it to her. She was like, thank you. And I was like, you're welcome. It is a candy dish. And she's like, it's not, but thank you. Great. See these little places? That's for cigarettes, not for candy suckers, all right? When I found out what Santa's day job was, one of the things that I was really interested in was wrapping as well, because I think wrapping to me is the most important part of a present. And in fact, I have a whole drawer of wrapping paper. If any of you, this is my promise to you for spending your time with me today, if any of you need a present wrapped, you come to room 265 in the Oklahoma Memorial Union. I will wrap your present. I got bows, I got bags, I got boxes and ribbons. It's like the Grinch in there. I can do it for you. But I really care about that too, because for me, there's no greater joy than being intentional with my thought and choosing something that you would love or that would be meaningful or practical for you and then making it look pretty. To me, that's an exchange of my love. And a lot of people don't receive gift giving as well. They're embarrassed. So a lot of times you'll notice, in fact, my good friends might know this about me, I don't usually watch you open it. I usually leave it for you, because I don't know how you choose to receive that love. And so it's okay with me if you don't like to do that in front of people, or if you don't want to see my face, or if you maybe already have that thing. That's okay. I want to leave it for you, and it'll be a little bit of joy that I don't get to see that happen. That's okay with me. It's the gift giving. It's the point. The point of it for me is making you feel special when you weren't with me. And finally, being a person of gratitude. Folks, this is another muscle group that we should be exercising every single day. It is critical to our happiness and our wellness to be people of gratitude. In fact, it's impossible for you to feel, I tell the freshmen this, so students who have heard me speak know, it's impossible for you to feel gratitude and despair at the same time. So a lot of times when students come to me, they're struggling, I ask them to make a list of things they're grateful for. And we go through that exercise because it changes that chemical composition in their brain. We can talk more strategically about what it is that is bringing them joy. I keep about 3,000 thank you notes in my office at all times. No kidding. Casey got me like a carousel, like they have a gift shop. So that's another promise that I can make for you, that if you need a gift card or even a card that says oops, because occasionally we all need those, you can come by and grab that for me too. But this single act, this idea of gratitude pretty much defines my practice of joy scattering. This year, I actually have a whole new reason to feel grateful. On February 6th, my mom was given the gift of her life back. A year ago, her kidneys failed for no reason. We don't know what happened. But on July 4th, in true Eckstein, that was my maiden name, Eckstein style, July 4th, she sat in her hospital bed with an Uncle Sam hat on. Sorry, Jill, it wasn't yours. And her creatinine level, for those of you who are in the medical area, was 9.8. And it's supposed to be less than 1. So we actually don't know how close we got to losing my mom, but I know that she still had a fighter spirit and a smile on her face and a ridiculous costume to wear at the hospital, which now, as I said out loud, is even more absurd than it actually was. She spent 18 months on dialysis, and then a month ago, her sister Pam gave her a new kidney. Now, she's going to hate me when I show you this picture, but you got to see what the first page of this notebook says. Congratulations on your new kidney. What? I'm like, who is in charge of these materials? I like him. I just thought that was so funny, man. I am happy to tell you that she is thriving. I have my mom back. Carrie and I talked about how the surgeon told us that the fog would lift, and it has lifted. She is the greatest blessing to our family. This is the second greatest blessing to our family, my Aunt Pam, who gave her actually it was a little scary. Pam decided she was going to be the donor before we knew if she'd be a match, and we were all a little nervous if it wasn't her, what was going to happen, because she probably would have thrown down. She's really intense, and I love the intensity about her, and so she willingly, enthusiastically, eagerly gave my mom her kidney, and the surgeon said when he put it in that it pinked right up. That's a good thing. It pinked right up. So I will be buying my Aunt Pam really extravagant gifts for the rest of her life. One of the things that I like to do with groups, especially with groups of students, is something called the 2-minute gratitude drill. And I started doing this at Camp Crimson. My husband and I were namesakes. And essentially what a 2-minute gratitude drill is, if you've never been through this with me, if you have, you're like, whatever, I'm totally good at this. You get your phone and you find a name of a person that's in your phone. So I don't want you to be grateful to like Oprah for showing you how to live your life. Unless you have her phone number, I'd like you to call someone in your phone. And I'd like you to give them kind of the intro, which is, hey, I'm in this session, or I was told by this speaker that I had to call someone who I'm really grateful for, who has helped me get to where I need to go in life. And I was told that I needed to call them and I needed to tell them because it's so important. So I'm calling you to tell you that I love you and I gotta go because this 2-minute gratitude drill is over, okay? So we're not gonna do the drill today, but I would like you, you can pretend to promise me, you just nod your head and be like, absolutely, I'll do it. Will you do it today? Will you just call somebody and just tell them that and say, I was given this instruction? Because the craziest thing is that person will never forget it. And they will be astounded by your phone call. And that blows my mind. Why is this astounding? Why is it astounding that people love us and they're willing to call us in the middle of the day and tell us that they love us? But it is astounding. And everyone who receives one of those always tells me, wow, I will never forget that phone call. If you get their voicemail, leave a voicemail. It will be the best voicemail they get today. I promise you that. I hope that you recognize how grateful I am for your time today. I hope you know how much I appreciate you listening to me and laughing along with me and giving me your smiles and your good energy, because it really makes a difference to a presenter to have that kind of affection from an audience. So I just really want to say thank you to you. In your seat, you have a couple of things, and then I'm going to turn it over question and answer. And then I'm finished. But the first thing you have is a postcard designed by my friend Allison. This is what she did for me at the final hour. I'd like you to self-address that postcard because I would like you to leave that with me, and I'd like to send you a proper thank you for coming. So you're going to self-address your postcard, and you're going to leave it in your chair, okay? The second thing is you have a thank you note. And some people are going to receive your love. Again, speaking different love languages, right? They're going to receive your love differently. So I'd like you to make yourself a commitment to write that thank you note this week and put it in the actual mail. I don't know how many of you have gotten mail lately, but it feels like you win the lottery when you get mail. I'm like, whoa, it's from Clinique. I mean, whatever. I'm just excited to get mail. So I want you to mail it to someone, okay? So mail it in the mail. If it's your roommate, still put it in the mail. It's 42 cents, y'all. You can do this. Put it in the mail so it comes in their mailbox. The third thing that you have is a quote, and it's from one of my favorite stationery companies. I kind of have a stationery purchasing problem. It's called Sugar Boo, and I picked all of your quotes are different. And I think that at OU, we need more love at OU. So what I would like you to do, students, staff, faculty, everybody alike, I'd like you to think of someone who reminds you of that quote, and I'd like you to write a note on the back and pop it in campus mail, tape it to their door, stick it in their backpack, do what you got to do. But I'd like you to deliver that to someone on this campus who reminds you of that quote. And finally, because I am not Ellen or Oprah, I can't give you a car or a check to pay off your college debt, but one thing I can give you, like my friend Lori Stevens gave to her entire Camp Crimson family, is a Sharpie. And that Sharpie marker is yours to keep, courtesy of Clark Stroud and the Division of Student Affairs. And I am really, really grateful to have gotten to spend this time with you. Thank you so much.
We're going to do the assessment.
Okay, great. Oh, thanks.
So tell me one of your favorite ways that you've given lately.
That is a great question. Well, I am Catholic, and it is Lent, full-on Lent. And one of the things that I've realized lately is how much I love to cook. And so I choose a one word for the year. I'm sure a lot of you do this, or you may do New Year's resolutions. I do academic year resolutions because let's be real, that's my life. It starts in August. So my word for this year, and I always know it's my word because I get it like Harry Potter got his wand, like the hair in the back of my neck goes up. And even if it's not a me word, I know it's my word. And my word this year was nourish. And so I've been trying to use that as like a guiding principle. And so I'm like, I'm loving to cook. My word is nourish. And I have all these families in my vicinity lately who could really use a meal. And so my Lenten kind of commitment is to cook for people each week. And I have a feeling, because I like it so much, I really love to chop things. So I don't know what that's about. Some stress maybe, some stress relief there. So I think for me, my favorite way I've been able to give is to provide a meal for somebody, knowing the relief that is. Having been on a meal, the receiving end of a meal train before, I know what that feels like. It's pretty amazing. In fact, Kyle, I need to talk to you after this about when I'm bringing dinner to you. Kyle has a new baby. But I think that's probably my favorite way, actually, of giving lately, is to bring food to someone's house and then to get out. So they don't have dishes. There's nothing to return to me. I'm very strategic about it. It's throwaway stuff. It's, no dishes. So that's it.
You said that you're a pretty positive person generally.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to way that when you're kind of in a funk that like perks you right out of it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a show called The Office. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but you can get all you want. You can mainline it. And I a lot of times, especially because I work in an office, and we all work in offices, and there can be frustrating things. For some reason, that show just puts everything in perspective for me. So I'll just watch like literally 10, 15 minutes, or sometimes I'll just go search Michael Scott quotes. I actually searched for one for this in gift giving. I don't know if you remember the Christmas episode where he buys an iPod, and he's like, hey, it's a way for you to say, I love you this many dollars worth. And then I thought, I'm not putting that in my presentation, but that's my go-to a lot. I think probably laughter is the best way for me to do it. And I work with these amazing women, many of them are in the room, and Clark Stroud, our boss, who makes movies of snowstorms as Girth Hensley with fake teeth. We're a lot of personality, but one of the things I love about them is that we have a great sense of humor in our office. And even though the stuff we do, the work we do is not always fun or funny, we always try to maintain that sense of humor about it, because if you lose that, then you lose hope. And when you lose hope, things kind of just go downhill from there. So The Office and just laughter in general. Provide my own summaries. Thank you, Susie.
So maybe share your most recent or your favorite, most impactful book.
Great. Aside from probably the 20 I talked about in here, one of my very favorites right now is by a woman named Gretchen Rubin. She wrote a couple books called The Happiness Project and Happiness at Home, but she has a book, it's not really new. My friend Carmen Bao actually told me about it, so I bought it in an airport and I read it on an airplane. It's called Better Than Before, and it's mostly about habits and how they are formed. Because I've been kind of interested lately in what are the habits I have, the good and the bad and the ugly habits, and how have those been shaped in me? What control do I have over those? She also writes in it about another book that I think is actually in production called The Four Tendencies, and I'm a sucker for assessments. Like, I love all that stuff. I just want to know everything. And so I think reading that book made me even excited about a book that hasn't even been read yet. So Gretchen Rubin, Better Than Before. And she's a pretty happy person too. I like that too. This isn't a person who's at the rock bottom of her, existence. It's a person who's like, actually, I love my life, but how do I make it better than it was? And so I appreciate that kind of sentiment, that it doesn't have to be the worst day of your life for you to turn things around, that you can kind of just decide, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna live a better story. Hey, thanks y'all. I know that you all scatter joy all the time, so I appreciate you coming and listening to me talk about it, and I just wish you all the luck in the world. If I can do anything for you, wrap your present or give you a card, you know where to find me in the Union. Thank you.